You're listening to the Bulldog Insider podcast, sponsored by Essentia Health.
Here, our hobbies become our work, and our work becomes our passion. But when joint pain or injuries keep us from doing what we love, it can affect our entire way of life. That's why we meet these challenges head on. Whatever your good day looks like, we'll find it together. This is Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, like nowhere else. Visit essentiahealth.org.
Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat writer at the Duluth News Tribune and the Rink Live, coming to you from Loveland, Colorado, after a week in State College, Pennsylvania, covering the Bulldogs women's hockey team in the NCAA Frozen Four.
And I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD hockey on My9 Sports. Matt's had a much more fun travel experience than I have the past week. We're in Rochester, Minnesota this week, which is actually pretty good considering the weather that's going on in Duluth right now. So we're happy to be in southern Minnesota.
And you didn't have to hop through airports or anything like Clint Austin and I took a direct flight from State College to Denver and then had to drive up here to Loveland today on Tuesday. So joining us this week on the podcast is an old friend. He's here to help us preview the start of the NCAA men's hockey tournament, which for the Bulldogs gets underway at 2 p.m. on Thursday against Michigan Tech in the NCAA regional semifinals at the Budweiser Events Center in Loveland, Colorado. Welcome back to the podcast, the former ice guru of Amsoil Arena, the current ice guru now of the Budweiser Events Center. It's Jake Magdzas. Jake, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Jake, year ago this time, you're in Duluth, still at Jeff Stark's beck and call at Amsoil Arena, taking care of the ice there. Kind of take us through this journey from living in Wisconsin and working for the deck in Amsoil Arena to coming out here to Colorado now and working at the home of the American Hockey League's Colorado Eagles.
Yeah, it's been certainly been an experience. Definitely a whirlwind. When it all kind of took off for me, it was kind of like 4 weeks notice of, I have this opportunity in Colorado. Am I going to take it? What am I going to do? I was kind of torn. Just kind of went with my gut, and now here I am in Loveland. It's been definitely eye opening. I've learned a ton in the last 9 months, almost 10 months now. And it's been a trip. It's been a lot of fun.
Like, did they come searching you out? Was this a job like that you saw was opening? I know like all over the country, there's been in the last year coming out of the pandemic, it seems like every arena is looking for people that have experience with ice and such like that. Like how did you find out about this job?
Had a pretty nice little horseshoe hiding somewhere. My roommate and former roommate in Duluth, who was the former student equipment manager for Chris Garner and the men's team, Bryce Blinkhorn, actually kind of lined this up for me. He, knew of an opening here and went to my current boss and said, "Hey, I've got a guy for you." So shipped him my resume. We, set up an interview and everything went well there. And just kind of, he said, took off running, and it's been awesome.
How competitive is that job, Jake? There's rinks all over this country, especially where you came from in Minnesota. But guys in your position, at that high end college level or, in the pro level, there's not too many jobs like this available. So, is there a lot of competition for ice guys?
I would have to say yes. When I accepted this position, I was informed that there was roughly 32 applicants, most of which weren't going to hack it anyway. It came down to myself and one or two other folks, and fortunately for me, have been residing here since then.
What's your official title with the Budweiser Events Center?
I'm operations manager, overseeing obviously all the ice operations and then all the building conversions and changeovers for different events, whether that be a concert, a rodeo, monster trucks, arena cross. I've got Disney on Ice next week, so a very wide facet of things. To some capacity similar as the deck. But but also very different with the dirt events that I've got to see and experience the last few months.
So you kind of answered my next question, which maybe comes from a place of I just don't know, but you said you learned a lot moving from Amsoil Arena to the Budweiser Events Center there. And it sounds like they do a lot of maybe different things throughout the year than Amsoil does, but a lot of it's similar. So what is there left to learn? Is it learning on the ice side, or is it more on the, how do you go back and forth between the events and the ice side? What have you learned since you've been there?
I thought I was organized before I moved here, and then I realized that I just kind of knew what I was doing at the deck. Then I got here and, more moving parts and a lot of, usage of temp labor and managing temp labor and, a lot more paperwork. Have a bit more of a desk job now than I had before. I think I've driven the Zamboni maybe at most 10 times since we put ice in September. So, I don't get to sit on my throne anymore, which is whatever. But I do have some quality drivers here, which is nice coming into the job. That was definitely a relief. And then again, like dirt events, I have no idea how to run a dirt event. We actually just had arena cross a couple months back over the ice. So you can imagine what that does to not only the ice surface, but, the building in general. I mean, everything is just coated in a layer of dust and dirt and nastiness, and it's definitely an experience to reckon with.
I've heard dirt events are like an ice rink's worst nightmare.
They really are. Luckily, our ice was in pretty good condition after the fact. You could tell where we had, our ice decking down, where every seam was, because there was dirt in there and there was rocks and stuff that got on the ice. I ended up shaving the rink once we got the ice decking pulled up, and I ruined the blade within 2 laps just from the rocks and everything. So I was just like, oh my goodness, this is gonna not be fun. But we ended up having like 3 or 4 days to turn it around back to an Eagles game, and everything went off without a hitch. So that was a bonus.
You can get away not having like rodeos or arena cross. I think in Duluth, Minnesota, not so much out here in the West in Colorado, can you?
Definitely not. The campus I'm on now, we do have our arena, which is similar capacity seating as far as Amsoil is concerned. But we also have a 4-H building. We've got a twin indoor rodeo and a warm-up arena. And there's always stuff going on there. In fact, I showed up to work the other day, and over the PA system outside, I was listening to the commentator guys in the arena talking about, Holstein cows and how it had nice shoulders and beautiful eyes. So that was something I had never experienced before either.
That's because you grew up in Northwest Wisconsin. If you were like me in Northeast Wisconsin, that's just like an everyday thing in the farm fields of Winneconne and Oshkosh and such like that. Budweiser Events Center, it's an American Hockey League arena. It's one step from the NHL. I'm wondering the demands of maintaining the ice and everything there. How does that compare to the NCAA men's and women's hockey at Amsoil? Is it similar? Are there greater demands? Does it take a bigger beating? What's that like?
Surprisingly enough, Amsoil and the deck take a bigger beating than our sheet does on a daily basis. I've got one hockey team to worry about. I don't have, youth programs coming in there for hours on end every night. I don't have figure skating to worry about, with, different ice conditions happening there as well. I don't have youth tournaments on almost a weekendly basis. I've had a couple one-offs here and there where they're 1 or 2 days long, and it's been all of, 5 or 6 games in total. So I certainly do appreciate, everything that the crew went through in Duluth to maintain that at such a high level. And then to get to this level, I mean, we're still want perfection like we did in Duluth and maintained in Duluth. And from what I can tell, they maintained it pretty well for the most part. This season, even without having some senior leadership like myself, granted, my brother was there at the helm to some capacity, Jared Rankula, again, they had some of those senior guys to help, pull the rope in the right direction. And again, it's not easy. I mean, those kids that, in Duluth that made this season happen for the Bulldogs, I think did a fantastic job from what I could tell. I'd check in with them every once in a while, or I'd get a phone call on something, and, more than happy to answer it. And, always going to be a Duluth faithful. And again, here it's fairly easy. We've got one practice a day. If it's an IR, it takes an hour, hour and a half. If we got a normal practice day, it's 3 hours, and then that's it if we're not having a hockey game.
You're about to get that schedule flipped on its head this week when you got 4 teams coming in for practices, 3 games at the most important time of the year, though. So did what you do at Amsoil kind of prepare you for what you're about to go through this week at the regional?
Absolutely. I know some of my coworkers wouldn't agree with me, and they're, a little anxious, I guess, as to how things are going to perform here. But, for me, I guess it's just a walk in the park. It reminds me of a doubleheader series with, men's and women's hockey on the same weekend, or, even, I guess, could relate it to, state section semis or finals where you've got, 4 games in one day, where the ice takes a real grade A beating. But yeah, like I said, I'm not nervous about it. Obviously, being on a national level of exposure, it's, that's in the back of my head, but I have no doubts that we will be able to perform at a good level this weekend and have pretty good ice conditions throughout.
So the NCAA is notorious for having very specific requirements when it comes to ice for the regionals and the Frozen Four and its logos and displays and everything like that. Can you kind of take us through what all had to be done in the lead up to this year's regional in Loveland? And how does that compare to how you normally would prepare the ice for, a tournament or a weekend, whether it's at Amsoil or at the Budweiser Events Center?
Yeah. So this past weekend, Friday and Saturday night, we had 2 Eagles games. So the game ended approximately around 9:30 Mountain Time on Saturday, and then immediately after the game, we started shaving the rink down. And throughout that day, we were shaving the rink pretty hard. And at the end of the game, we were, probably about an inch thick, nearing 3/4. And our target depth was 3/4 of an inch of ice, getting us 3/4 of an inch over the Eagles paint. Sunday morning at 7 a.m., we went in, whited out the entire sheet, and repainted everything. All the logos, all the circles, all the dots, all the lines. It's all fresh paint for this tournament. And after the game concludes Saturday, I'll be shaving it down again back to the NCAA ice, whiting out everything for Disney on Ice in preparation for next week's event. So it's going to be a pretty heavy couple weeks here as far as our Zamboni drivers are concerned.
Do you take some pride in this as an ice crew? We talk about the programs, players, coaches that get here, officials. We've talked to them about, the pride that they take in their work. But, Matt and I don't talk to a lot of other ice guys, to be honest with you. You've been kind of our ice guru, as Matt puts it. So, I mean, how much pride does the crew take in this, knowing that there's going to be a lot of eyes on you from around the college hockey world this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's always kind of been my thing. You take pride in what you do, otherwise you're not going to do it very well. And even the crew I have here, I only have 3 drivers, where in Duluth I had like 13, which was, convenient. So it's a lot of long hours for them. And, we're at this point of the season, we're all exhausted, quite frankly, with the schedule that we've had. And then doing this ice changeover, I haven't had a day off now in over a week. Every day's been 10, 12, 14 hours, but that's the nature of the beast. And in order to get the work done, you got to do it. And again, everyone's tired, but we're all excited to host this event. It's great for the city of Loveland, and, to get that national exposure and kind of get this town and this arena on the map. And I know my drivers that I have, they're very proud of the product we're producing, which is the ice, and, maintaining that throughout the week at the highest level we can.
Zach mentioned the pride that you guys take in your job. That's why you guys paint. Like most other places, I think you had mentioned this to me before we started recording, everywhere else they just put decals down on the ice. Like XL Energy Center for the Frozen Face-Off, they put some Frozen Face-Off decals down on the ice, around the Wild logo, but you guys don't do stickers on the ice. You're still old school painting, which we don't see in a lot of hockey. Why is it that you still want to do the paint instead of the stickers? What's the advantage?
I think the main advantage, and granted, Jet Ice, who is the producer of, not only the paint, but the textile logos you're referring to, their printing process has gotten a lot better over the years. And nowadays you can hardly tell the difference. For a short, stint of a rink like the NCAA or the Frozen Face-Off logo, you're not going to see a difference. If we put textiles down in this sheet, you wouldn't see a difference. The only advantage, in my opinion, to painting, the colors are more vibrant. It might look a little more sharp on TV, but, I watched some of the Frozen Face-Off myself, and I saw the logo you're referring to. To me, it looked awesome. It looks fresh. It's got, good clean ice over it. long term, say a rink that's going to be in for, a full season, your paint might pop a little better visually towards the end of the season. So I think that's the one main advantage. Us for painting, and we had the time, to paint, which was nice. Freeze downs go in quick, painting takes a while. On the back end, I've never really had to pull out a freeze down before, unless I'm removing ice permanently for the season. Just bust it out with the skid steer. I don't have that luxury right now. It's fairly simple to my understanding. You shave down as close as you can, or you dare to, with the Zamboni. Then you take your ice edger, go around the exterior of it, and just kind of slowly with hot water, burn it out of the ice, so to speak, and then suck up the excess water, with the shop vac.
You mentioned the paint pops better. That has to come in handy if, say, you're reviewing a goal for offside, a play for offside, or whether a puck crosses the goal line. Like, does any of that ever kind of come through your head too? Or are you just trying to put like the best product possible out there on the ice for competitors, spectators, everyone? Yeah,
I think typically, the majority of rinks, especially at, NHL, AHL, pro hockey or college level, your lines are primarily going to be painted. Very rarely are you going to freeze those down. I've done freeze down lines before in the past, for a quick one weekend hockey tournament at the Deck Arena, just to save time. Obviously there's nothing under video review there. So, it matters to some extent visually, but at that level, it doesn't really matter. It's up to obviously referee discretion at that point.
So sometimes we hear a lot of, I want you to break down the procedures for the ice, because sometimes we hear some complaints in these regional rounds about the ice at various arenas, that it's, it's not as good, it's slower, it can benefit lesser teams. I think some of that is some higher seeds complaining about why they lost, but like what the NCAA requires, does that in any way you think hinder ice production at all? Because I know like last year in Fargo, because of the quick turnaround, like you guys had experienced the quick turnaround to redo the ice. Fargo, they went like a week ahead of time and decided to just play their junior hockey games with the NCAA logos because they wanted the ice more time to settle. Like, I'm just curious, your thoughts on these procedures and how they impact the ice conditions.
Obviously, we're going to have a lot of new unused ice out there. We've got 4 break-in skates to help, again, temper the ice and get it, kind of beat it up, make it stronger, more resilient for these games. But I think as we progress through the week here, the ice conditions will improve. And, I've seen it how many years now in Duluth and Deck Arena where, the ice can always be a little questionable, the first few times you're on it. But once you get it, broke in, and again, it takes time, and we're talking weeks, for it to completely temper and, get to its, full strength capacity and stuff like that. So it's going to be tough. And, complaints will be fielded, I'm sure, but it's one of those things like, both teams have to skate on the same sheet, in this regional, all 4 teams skate on the same sheet. So again, it's one of those things that perfect world, I would have installed this ice, a month ago, but just not reality.
What's the next step after this weekend, Jake? Obviously you got the rest of the year there with Colorado, and then you got, sounds like some off-season hockey events in the off-season from hockey season. But, what's next for you? There's 32 NHL jobs out there. We talk to the players all the time about, what their next step is. Is that a goal of yours to work your way through the AHL, the minor leagues, and get to one of those top jobs? Is that on the bucket list for you?
Oh, absolutely. To me, that kind of be a pinnacle of success. I would certainly love to work in Olympics at some point in my career. To me, working in Olympics would be like the holy grail. I could retire after I did that, but it's not in the cards right now at 32 years old.
You could get an Olympics in there, right?
Yeah, but I can't retire at 32.
Well, if you get the right pull tab, maybe you can retire at 32. But how hard is it to, you mentioned this job just in Colorado, an AHL rink, there were 32 applicants. Like, is it again kind of a who like, do you have to make connections? How do you land one of these, whether it's an NHL job or the Olympics?
I think a lot of it is, building those connections and, kind of getting your name out there. I'm in contact with guys down at Ball Arena in Denver with the Avalanche, I'd kind of on a monthly basis or, bi-monthly basis check in, or if I have questions on anything, if I need an opinion, they say, call them up, and that's a very convenient resource to have and utilize. I've been down to one game. Actually got to watch the Minnesota Wild play the Avalanche on my birthday, which was pretty neat. Competitive, yeah, and there's not many jobs, and there's a lot of fantastic ice makers out there. In fact, one of my ZAM drivers runs the rink over down in Boulder, and she has worked multiple Olympics. One of the drivers at Ball Arena kind of heads up the ice making and ice maintenance for the Olympics. So again, connection building. Is it in the cards? I certainly would think so, but I also need to put the work in too. I can't just show up to work Monday to Friday and hope it's going to happen. I'm going to have to put the work in, and that's going to be a lot of, obviously, on me, 110%. There's more educational things I can do on my behalf to kind of, I guess, bring that all around and see it through fruition. So.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to have more with Jake. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
I'm McHatton.
I'm Jess Myers, and we are the co-hosts of the Rink Live podcast. We really pride ourselves on finding some unique guests and covering some of the topics of the day, not only in college hockey, but kind of across a broad spectrum.
Yep, we also talk junior hockey. We'll get some of that talk in there as well. Women's hockey, men's hockey. We try to talk to people from throughout the game and actually from all over the country. That's been one of the great things on Zoom.
And Mick and I are kind of OG, the Rink Live guys. We were here from the start, about 3 years ago now when things got off the ground, but we brought a fair amount of college hockey experience to this job. I went to Minnesota Duluth. I covered college hockey starting then when I was a student. I've covered the Frozen Four 28 times, and I primarily cover the Minnesota Gophers now for the Rink Live, but dabble in a little bit of everything.
And I've covered St. Cloud State hockey. Now this will be my 12th season. So please check us out on the Rink Live podcast on Mondays.
Enjoying this podcast? Get even more Bulldogs hockey news by visiting Duluth News Tribune .news/support and take advantage of our limited offer for 3 months of unlimited news for only 99 cents a month. Get this offer now at Duluth News Tribune .news/support.
Hi there, my name is Dan Williamson, and I am one of the hosts for the Duluth News Tribune Minute Podcast. Hear the most important news of the day, including weather and sports from Duluth, Minnesota, and from around the Northlands. Join me, as well as Barrett Chase, and our fellow reporters as we take you through the local news you need to start your day. Episodes are released Monday through Friday and are available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for supporting local journalism.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. Jake, how are you liking Colorado? How big of a change is it from living in the Midwest in Wisconsin and Minnesota?
I like it. It's definitely different. A week ago today, I was golfing and it was 75 degrees. So I already started my golfer stand for the season. Last Thursday, I was snowboarding in almost whiteout conditions on fresh powder. So if that kind of gives you a little insight on how things are here, it's very different than the Midwest, of course. Like I said, weather's typically been fantastic. I have yet to have to shovel any snow. I can't complain. It's, again, coldest it's been here that I've experienced, I think, is 5 below, and people are here like freezing their faces off, and I'm like, this isn't bad. And they look at me like I'm crazy, but to be expected.
I was gonna say, you were talking earlier about some of the friends you're making down in Ball Arena, and that's a good thing, because I feel like you're losing friends right now talking about the weather, because it's not pretty back in Duluth and Superior right now.
Yeah, so I've heard. I get frequent updates from my parents or my brother complaining about having to shovel or snow blow for the 3rd time in a day. The last big snowstorm you guys got, I guess, sounded pretty brutal. And again, here it was 50, 55, sunny, and pretty sure I was sitting on my patio drinking a beer or something. So that was nice.
Not only did you leave family and friends back in Duluth, but you left a couple hockey programs that you had pretty good relationships with the coaching staff, trainers, players that came and went during your time here. So what's it been like to kind of create new relationships with the Eagles, the team that's in your building most of the year, probably your biggest tenant, I would imagine, and biggest communicator about ice and what they need from you?
Yeah, it's been great. The guys with the Eagles are awesome. I've got to get to know a handful of them, fairly well. Like to reiterate, it's nice having my roommate Bryce Blinkhorn here, who again, Bulldog alumni. So that's certainly made life a lot easier. Having Hunter Miska here, certainly is nice too. Back to he's who I went golfing with last week. I've gone ice fishing with him a couple times here up near Red Feather, northern edge of Colorado, almost on the Wyoming border. So yeah, it's been good.
Are you always busy during the games, or do you get a chance when they're actually playing too, especially with that new desk, that fancy desk job of yours, when you're not driving the Zam? Do you get a chance to watch the games, or are you busy during the events?
Yeah, it's similar to, I guess, what I did in Duluth as far as just kind of monitoring temperatures and ice conditions and whatnot, adjusting the ice chiller temperature as needed. Again, air temperature, all that fun stuff that goes into ice making. I do get to watch, but again, you're always kind of on alert, watching for weird bounces or, someone's stick gets stuck in the Zam door. Okay, I have to adjust that, or, knock on wood, haven't broken any glass yet this year, and hopefully it stays that way, because that's my worst nightmare right there.
So no cheering in the press box, but if we watch closely enough, we might see you by the Zam doors cheering when UMD scores this weekend.
Yeah, I'll give you 3 solid blinks. How's that sound?
That's good. That'll be our secret sign.
Perfect.
All right, we're going to do some compare and contrast to Colorado and back home in the Twin Ports for you here. The first one's the easy one. Like, this is no contest, I have to think. Better skiing and snowboarding, Colorado or the Twin Ports?
Definitely Colorado.
You're in skiing and snow. Are you a skier or snowboarder?
Snowboard.
Okay. Better fishing and hunting?
I'm going to have to go no answer. I have yet to be able to hunt here. And as far as fishing, I haven't done a ton of either, unfortunately. I guess accessibility for me personally, I'm going to have to go with the Twin Ports area. Just, grew up doing it my entire life, so I know the ins and outs. But it certainly is on the bucket list to, do some hunting out here. You
drove home for the Wisconsin deer opener, I heard, this year.
I did. Hockey game ended here at 9:58. My truck was on at 10 p.m. I stopped twice through my drive through the night to take a brief half-hour nap, and I rolled into deer camp at 4:30 p.m.
And how long did you actually get to stay at deer camp?
About 48 hours.
Did you get one, though? Was it worth it?
I did not get a deer, and it was 150 million% worth it.
It's not what hunting is about?
No, definitely not. It's definitely just hanging out with my brother and my dad and my uncles and my cousin and telling jokes and telling stories. And yeah, but what happens at deer camp stays at deer camp, so I can't go any further.
Unless you shoot a deer, then that's shared with anyone and everyone, right?
Oh yeah, that's one thing. A few of the friends I've made here certainly do enjoy the venison sticks I brought back from back home.
Better beer.
Oh boy, I might have to go Colorado here. But there are some fantastic ones back home too. That's a tough one.
I don't even know if I can answer that one, because I got 3 crawlers from Bull and Bush Brewery right now in the rental car that I'm gonna bring back to. There's very good beer out here in Colorado. Very good beer back in the Twin Ports. Very good beer back here in Colorado. I don't know if I can even answer that one. It's tough. I feel bad, Duluth. I'm sorry, but I really like it. It's almost like a draw right now. Better hockey.
You can't beat the state of hockey.
Yeah, I just listening to you talk about how, like, at the Budweiser Events Center, you got just one team, which sounds great to just have to worry about one team. But then, yeah, everything they have to do at Amsoil, the hockey, all day there. I think you already answered this one, and I knew the answer to this one too, from the time I've spent out here in Colorado. Better weather. Definitely Colorado. You don't miss the Lake Superior winters one bit. A lot of it. Believe it or not, yeah, I do miss it. It's an adjustment. Like I said, grew up experiencing that, and that was life. And come out here, and I think the largest total snowfall I've seen here is 6-8 inches, and not 2 or 3 feet. No bone chilling cold in the depths of January and February, but again, I can't complain. Sounds great. I don't know what you're talking about here. Lake Superior or the Rocky Mountains? You're killing me. I'm gonna go Lake Superior. That's a close one for me too. But I like sitting on Lake Superior in the summers, It's too good. All right, last one. This isn't compare and contrast. Who do you miss more, Jeff Stark or your brother, Zach?
Again, another tough one. You know, probably I'm gonna have to go with my brother. I miss pounding knobs on his head once in a while.
You faked that one very, very well. Jeff didn't try and hit you up for any Girl Scout cookie sales here, did he?
He did not this year.
All right, that's because he got all the rest of us at Amsoil Arena for a solid month there. Jake, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on the podcast this week. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's good to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Jake.
Bulldog Insider podcast will continue to come out every Thursday this spring as long as the Bulldogs are still playing hockey. So if they fall in the regional this weekend, we'll be sad to say next weekend would be our season finale, where we'll wrap up both the men's and women's season. We're going to take a look back at the Frozen Four at Penn State yet, but Zach, I feel like we need some time to digest the championship loss here before we break that down. Do you have any initial thoughts on you want to share now, or you need some time yet?
No, I was able to sneak away from work on Tuesday of this week. No, it was Monday of this week. Less than 24 hours when the team got back to Amsoil Arena. They had a little informal gathering there, and it was nice to see the players and the coaches and say hi. But watching them get off the bus, 24 hours later with that same look on their faces was never fun. We've done that a couple times now in UMD hockey history, and it's never fun to come out on the losing end of that. So we'll talk about it next week.
You can find Bulldog Insider on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit therinklive.com and DuluthNewsTribune.com. Thanks to our sponsor, Essentia Health, for their continued support of the Bulldog Insider podcast. We'll be back next week, and hopefully for 3 weeks after that. Thanks for listening.